Mr. Scales here. We're talking about meta psychology, or this idea is basically I will freaking is basically I will propose, to be honest, or basically my thesis. Not really like a thesis, it's basically kind of like a scholastic sense, or basically a scholarly sense. Call it scholarly or university sense, a kind of sense of university, but basically just a I would say a proposal or a presumption, to be a presumption, but basically yes, just basically this is a proposal, to be honest though. This idea itself of basically this idea or notion itself, I don't really like notion, but basically like basically a branch of segmented yet branch of segments, or connecting, or basically correlated, or tangential ideas, to be honest though. Ideas about how really like mind works, or how really the mind works truly, to be honest though. To be honest, Jung kind of espoused to it, or it gives kind of espoused it, or basically extrapolated it, using some ideas itself is basically derive or derive derive or its origin or originator, or it just progenitor progenitor came from mythology, or either be it Christian, either be it Christian a Christian and such as well. So yeah. So this idea itself, that basically the left and the right brain though, for some weird reason, when people think actually about when one think itself, this will sounds like schizo, but yeah, one is attracting the energy of thought itself. How they actually how would I discuss the not discuss, but basically put put it to simplicity, to be honest though, or basically not making it too much complex or compounded. But this idea itself, that the mind is basically the mind channels energies. Thought is attracted. Thought is not even thought as one know it, but attracted. One attracts the energy of thought itself, and that thought itself is radiated, or basically magnetized, or attraction. That's really important when one thinks about I'm thinking and such. The issue about that is the ego itself will see the thought itself with ego itself is inutility, or it will see something as beneficial to itself or for its survival. The ego is basically being conditioned and reinforced that basically everything is a thought, and emotion, emotion and feelings is also as well included to that, and that's so important because anxiety, depression actually starts itself there when thought itself, or basically the ego itself, that oh my gosh, I just feel this something there, I feel this something there, or just this feeling. The right brain or the heart is being attacked by thoughts, or even worse as well, when one actually there are some forces in reality itself that is even like beyond us, to be honest though, or some external force that is transcendent, but can fathom, interact, or even scrutinize by mind or consciousness even. There are some that's basically the demons, or chronic forces there, that basically pretend themselves to be thought, or just confuse someone that basically they are a thought or aspect of oneself, but it's really not. Con- um, Anxiety and depression is basically the right brain, or the creative part of the brain, or just creative part, or just the heart itself is just being attacked, basically being attacked. That's how basically this dudes come out. In a nutshell itself, when one preserve the feelings, one will know itself that the feelings itself is just fine, or can stand alone by itself, without actually with thoughts. So yeah, well, actually the support or basic supplementation or the aid of thought itself, in a nutshell, is just fine. When one don't think, it just go with feeling itself. Literally, a person is just fine itself because they are supported by the heart more or the right brain more, without the abstraction of thought or ego itself, or ego, or thought or ego. The most ironic part itself that this idea of kenosis, but as said itself by basically this Greek idea of kenosis, or basically letting go of the one, or in if in I if I remember orthodoxy, I remember or miss orthodoxy, this idea itself of emptying the mind, because the mind attracts stuff, to be honest. The most important thing itself is just attract like really beneficial or for its welfare. So yeah, and ironically itself, then when a person think about things itself, he attract that stuff there. He attract that stuff there. The ego is just there to reinforce the stuff as well, and just use the I am, not the highest I am, but use basically just a fake version, to be honest, of I am this or I am that itself, for its own protection. For its own protection, I am denotes the idea of being itself. An ego, an ego, an ego, or an ego, for it to be processed by a mind, uses that idea as well. When basically these demons actually, or dark forces, or even some soft form as well, they will use the word they will use that phrase, or I am, to get to enter to your body, to be honest, or nervous system, and implant imprints. That's really really freaking essential, to be honest. In a nutshell, in a nutshell, the most of the stuff of the right brain itself is actually should be on the left brain, actually, though. Should be on the left brain, actually, though. So yeah, or the left brain, actually, though. So yeah, if one know what it means, to be honest, though, that, oh my gosh, I am anxiety, and basically like freaking like I am anxious, or just basically the freaking like anxiety actually attacks. It's actually it will emerge. It will emerge as, hey, I am a thought. It's enter your body, though, and just basically feeling will this basically like feeling will come. No, feeling will come first. With feeling will come, how this go, will feeling come, thought with one will, two feeling come, three thought comes. And basically that part is to be integrated itself, not integrated or be an aspect or a part, but actually itself, this freaking thing itself just exists because of the I am, though. That's the basic, the I am there. If one thing about itself, this idea that basically they're hearing thought, and the ego integrated that, in a sense there, this idea itself is much better to actually the other, or the left side of the brain, to not know stuff, to be honest, or some stuff to be unintegrated as well, because the ego will use things itself for itself. It's in sometimes not in a good sense, on how it's conditioned, or how it's basically being calloused, or basically hardened by survival, of course. How do these basically entities attract, to be honest, not entities, but basically entities works, to be honest, though. These entities work If this entity works as in a sense of idea that everything itself is of survival, because that's basically the point of being, though, not really survival, but basically for its preservation. It's for its preservation and prolonged existence, or extended existence. It just wants itself to thrive, either passive or in strife. That's basically everything itself there. when an entity attach itself, it will attach itself with this idea, except of course of the spirit or the heart, of course, though, but basically of some beings itself, that they will have like, well, they will pass a test or something, they'll pass a test or something, or they'll implant a negative aspect to as well. They are non-dual beings. They will apart they will apart they will they will implant this negative and also their positive side as well, to positive side to as well, in order for it that basically they will kind of like have energy to as well, kind of like in economics, to be honest, or exchange. That's pretty economic or exchange, actually, that's pretty much it. So yeah, why the heck is just basically said that basically the idea that there's need to be a lecture or discussion or discussion, or not even just discussion itself, but not even just discussion itself, but basically this topic itself, though not really the topic basically, but basically the topic, but basically this concept itself, or of discussion itself, of discussion. Why is that? Why all of this matter? Why all of this matters, to be honest. All of this really matters, as one itself is basically freaking like brainwash or program by psychology itself, or not even just psychology, or basically like freaking like pseudoscience crap on how actually mind works. But all of them is just basically bullcrap in a nutshell, or basically incredulous, to be honest, dude, or incredulous, or basically incredulous, or at all as well. They're at all they're all incredulous, or at all disingenuous on how the mind work, because the mind works in basically in a really really complex way, specifically the right brain, to be honest, though, because how subconscious works, the subconscious, or just basically the other aspect, which is basically like the third topic about the subconscious. The subconscious is the manifestation of the one. The one sees everything itself as they are, or just they are just existing beings, unreal or real, unreal or real. They are unreal or real. They are just, or just as in the state of is. In a nutshell, subconscious. Whenever subconscious sees basically a visualization or imagining, it will see it as freaking true. To be honest, though, it will see it as true. That's basically it there. And this is interesting as well, because there are some aspects of the mind itself, or if one doesn't cultivate the mind itself, or the will, cultivate the mind or the will, um one or the mind will literally will literally be washed, not really washed, but basically be fluttered and basically fleet away by these images and such. And just basically, if a thought comes itself there, like basically the idea itself of oh my gosh, I will have a freaking disease or something. And basically the mind itself, not really the mind, but basically the thought will conceive the idea itself of, oh my gosh, that freaking like disease itself. And the thought will but basically the mind will see it there. But the mind will see it, or just basically panic in itself. But really that idea itself is just bruh. That literal but that basically idea itself is literal. But idea itself is literally just like, bruh, dude. Bruh, dude. That's not even yours, dude. It's just the mind will see it's just an actual stuff there, and just a roller coaster, or just some sorrow will occur or lose form. So yeah, one must know the subconscious itself. I've already talked about this idea itself there from like other freaking videos, to be honest, dude. But subconscious is so freaking fickle as heck. Why? When one thinks of the reptilian brain as well, freaking subconscious will think it as that part of reptilian as the actual freaking reptilian too. Or if basically This is freaking the most wildest part ever about the idea about fictional characters or even like paradigms of philosophy. You will see it as true and integrate it. This is freaking wild. This is freaking wild. But basically, as well, I've interacted with fictional characters before, so yeah, and they have really affect as a kind of context of archetypal sense. So know the mind or subconscious itself. And although as well, this paradigm is so ridiculously simple, but one does not need of emotion. You just need like thought and feeling. The end. Thought and feeling. The end. Or to be honest, this idea of choose your paradigms. To be honest, though, the prescription is just better to basically the ego, the subconscious itself is basically of the right brain, right? So yeah, right brain, right, or basically itself this idea itself of the not just the ego itself though, but basically some aspects of basically the greater mind is just basically the ego having it, like emotions and thoughts and self, not thoughts but basically just emotions and feelings. That stuff is just basically on the other brain instead of the left. It's always better to not know it though. So yeah, Mr. Skills can like we'll stop it at the moment in this. So yeah, we'll continue this, to be honest though. Mr. Skills out.